My name is Simon Chadwick. I am Professor of Eurasian Sport at EMLYON Business School in France. I'm really happy today to have Sarah, Bruno and Hermann with me to talk about winter sports and the Winter Olympics with a particular emphasis on China. We're going to begin in a moment by getting Sarah, Hermann and Bruno to talk a little bit about who they are and what they do, and I have got some questions prepared. Hopefully the questions provide sufficient scope for a good discussion, but there are certain things that I do want to touch on with the guests. But in the meantime, if there are people online who want to ask questions, please, in the chat forum, you can post questions as we go through. And when there's an opportunity to pose those questions or put those questions to the group, then I'll do so. I'll try not to talk too much, other than to say thank you everybody for being here. Thank you to our panel of speakers. And what I'm going to do very quickly is to move over to Sarah and say, good day, Sarah. Could you tell us who you are, what your background is, and why you think you're here today?
Ni hao China, bonjour la France, good day to everybody. It's a pleasure to join you and to give you some insights into the exciting year that we've got ahead, looking ahead to the Beijing 2022 Olympic Winter Games. I was a former Olympic skier competing in alpine skiing, and have had really the privilege to remain involved in the sport ever since, working in the industry, in the business, and then uppermost within the organization of the administration of the sport, initially for the National Ski Association, but for the last 26 years working for the International Ski Federation, FIS, firstly as the technical coordinator for the Alpine Skiing Continental Cup level, and latterly the last 20 years as the Secretary General of the organization. So skiing, winter sports, snow is very much deeply rooted in everything I do.
And can I see from your background, it's snowing out of your window there, Sarah? Is this true, or is that?
Well, it is a virtual background,
right, okay.
But actually it is the reality. That is the view from 2 weeks ago, just outside the house. So very privileged to have that sort of view that I can look out on every day.
So thank you, Sarah, for being with us. And Bruno, if you could tell us who you are and where you are and what your background is.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Bruno Cercley. I'm the president of Rossignol Group. I've been leading this company for about almost 20 years. I have a mechanical engineering background, so you can do a lot of things with that, including leading a ski company. So Rossignol, as you know, has a very long history about skiing. So we started making skis in 1907. I think this company participated very closely to building the racing circuit, I would say, worldwide, and it has always been our DNA. As we have always been convinced that racing is what you do just to learn people about the sports, about practicing the sports, and then going to it for leisure. And this is exactly what we have been doing for decades. And we think, obviously, having the games in Beijing next year is a tremendous opportunity for China. We have been dealing with China now for some time, and we have a very strong belief that it's going to be huge in the future.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. Thank you for being with us. And Hermann, I think I bow my head to Hermann, because I think that one of the reasons that we're here today is Hermann contacted me last year and we started to talk about winter sport in China. So I'll leave you, Hermann, now to say a little bit more about who you are and particularly why you have an interest in China.
So let me start with Qinian Kuai Gongxi Fachai to our Chinese guests and visitors. Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you very much for having me in this distinctive round. I'm a founder of SnowHowChina and a co-founder of Snow51. We are a physical lifestyle platform offering ski education in China to the emerging middle class. If I say indoor ski education, I mean we teaching people on ski simulator machines. And ski simulator machines, you simply think over-dimensional treadmill or running machine. So you basically skiing on the carpet. Someone called us also the driving range of alpine skiing, or the assembly line for producing skiers. So we are working basically in very urban downtown shopping malls and at the forefront of educating Chinese people in alpine skiing. And it's a very exciting journey, I have to say, and we see that the market is definitely heating up, and obviously the Olympics 2022 will be one of the very big milestones, and the market is set to grow from here. And so I'm very happy to be together with you in this round, because it will be a very exciting discussion, I'm pretty sure.
Thank you, Herman. And just to say from my side, I'm an English guy, and as many of you probably already know, we don't get too much snow, although we've had quite a lot of snow in England in recent times. But I've been indoctrinated to pay close attention to downhill skiing. So if anybody who needs to ask a question about Camille Stoch or Jewa or any of these guys, then I'm the man for ski jumping on the panel. What I want to do is just to begin very, very generally, because I'm sure there are people here who are winter sports enthusiasts. You go out and you ski or you skate or whatever else, and there may be some of you who even compete or take an interest in competitions, but you may be perhaps less familiar with the business of the industry. And if I could start with you, Sarah, again, I guess from that government level, if you like, or that international association level, can you give us a sense from your perspective of just how big the sport is? You know, how big's the sport? How big's the industry, do you think?
First of all, let me perhaps give you a bit of context in terms of the significance of this period that we're now in the midst of. With the Olympics, the Beijing 2022 Olympics taking place next year, this is absolutely the global showpiece to really have the opportunity to promote and to develop winter sports and snow sports in China, both from a competition standpoint, but also as an industry, also tourism, recreation, and so on. And China was elected in 2015, so 6 years ago. And since then, it's really become very, very much central to the government policy relating to winter sports, that the President Xi Jinping made a very clear statement at the outset that as a consequence of the Beijing 2022 Olympic Winter Games, there would be 300 million new winter sport participants. Just to perhaps to repeat, 300 million. Now, Bruno, Hermann know very well that the total global market is around 150 million for winter sports. So by automatically double that number, this is a very, very huge and significant number. And consequently, the necessary programs have been put into place, the development with ski resorts, the development with the whole structure of the sport. And they also see it not only as an opportunity to come to a higher level in winter sports, which is in any case succeeding with top experts now working with the Chinese teams, but most importantly with a long-term industry, a long-term tourism element behind it. Manufacturing, production, and sales and creating the industry around it, but also the actual tourism. A lot of China is very wintry. They have great mountains and very consistent snow, good cold climates. But also there's huge interests in other cities in the country, and there are indoor facilities, as Hermann just mentioned, but also indoor snow slopes. And I can come back with some numbers and things a bit later on, but I just wanted to put into context the fact that it's a very much a joined up program, where the Beijing 2022 Olympics are a catalyst for the growth, both on the competition side, but also for a long-term future and a successful future for the industry. Again, it's the health and the recreational side that will also play an important role in the whole government policy.
Thank you, Sarah, and really huge numbers. And for anybody familiar, particularly with Chinese sport and Chinese government ambitions for sport, those kind of numbers are certainly consistent with their aspirations in other areas too. I guess, Hermann, this is a place that you spend a lot of time either in or thinking about. Can you add to what Sarah has said there in terms of China and the size of the industry in China and the growth that it's now going through?
Yeah, for us, it's also very clear that China will be the leading ski nation in a very short period of time. When we talk about sold tickets, which is maybe the most common way to measure the number of skiers or at least ski visits, China is already number 4 in the world. So they have already about 20 million ski visits a year. And the big nations, France, Austria, and the US, they have about 50 million. So it's just a matter of time until China will close that gap, because it's the law of the big number. So alpine skiing will still remain kind of a niche or elite sports in China, but just having 3% of the population joining the sports, it will be massive. And as Sarah say, we are here definitely talking about doubling the global market. So it's incredible what happens here. And for me, it's always important to see what happens on the consumer side and also the government side. When I take the consumer side, I just see that Chinese consumers are replacing a lot of their material status symbols with experiences. So similarly, like in the West, and experiences are traveling and sports. So in our areas in the Alps, you might do winter sports in order to fit in, but in China, you do winter sports to stand out. It's very special, it's a differentiator, and it comes with a lot of status and prestige. Obviously, also healthiness is the new wealthiness, so a lot of, and the COVID crisis all accelerated this trend for fitness and also well-being. So on the consumer side, we are very well set to move towards experiences, and that's sports and travel. And also the government, as Sarah explained before, has a very strong interest to push winter sports in China. They want to create new jobs in the service and the tourism sector. They want to support real estate, recreational holidays, recreational housing is a very new phenomenon in China. And last but not least, they are very much concerned about public health as well. So they want people to be active and ideally outside polluted cities, outside in the inner areas of China. And usually it's enough if one of those forces is working in China, so either consumer or government. But this time the two powers are working at the same time, and this will create big waves, or I would even call it a tsunami in terms of newness and innovation, and also growth for the winter sport market in general.
Thank you, Hermann. I'll come to you in a second, Bruno. Can I just pick up on one thing, Hermann? It's a very personal question that I want to ask you. You talked about Chinese people using winter sports to stand out. So how do they do that?
I think it's very different from the areas. I'm from the very north of Italy, from the Dolomites. So skiing is a more regular thing. You are a skier, you grow up. It's more maybe like riding a bicycle in Beijing. But being a skier in China is a very, very special thing. So first of all, there are not too many yet. It's also considered to be a brave sport, in the sense you need to be brave and skillful to do it. And we see a lot of business really iconic business leaders starting skiing, because it's a kind of the new golf. If I think back 15, 20 years in China, golf was also emerging, and it started to become popular. And then the elite took it up first, and then it was triggered down to the middle class. But being a skier in China is definitely a special thing. And we also see really a lot of celebrities, a lot of business leaders joining the game. And that's the best indication, in my opinion, in the Chinese market, that the middle class will follow.
Moving to you, Bruno, could you give us a sense of not just China, but more broadly, what is the state of the industry at the moment? How is size? What do you notice about number of participants? And I guess particularly at this moment with the pandemic, are people still skiing, or has it really begun to tail off?
Okay, so obviously these times are a little bit special, I would say, when we look at skiing worldwide. But if we put aside for 1 minute this pandemic, since I would say more than 20 years, you have every year a participation about 350 million ski days. And this is quite stable. So when I hear some people say, skiing is less attractive than in the past, etc., it's simply not true. And I think you have really this average number of ski days, which is 350 million. Half of it is 3 countries: the US, France, and Austria. With about 55 million, and the rest of all mountain countries. And so I mean, it's the ski, the sport is still very attractive today, and I see many people at this moment who are very frustrated about the pandemics. In some countries, you cannot ski, like France. France has not opened at all the ski lift so far, and probably will not during this winter. And we expect a big rebound next winter if the pandemic allows it. There are many people eager to go for skiing. So I think it's going to be the case in the future. Now, this specific situation have learned us there are also other ways to be in the mountains without ski lift. You can do ski touring, you can do cross-country skiing, and probably in non-winter season, you can go for riding a bike, trail running, etc. And this is quite interesting, because we obviously know that now for years. We have invested in the bike business with Rossignol 4 years ago. And I think also in China, people are very keen about skiing, going to the mountains in winter, but there is also a lot of initiatives to be able to welcome these people during the other season as well. Coming back to what Hermann was saying about China situation at this moment, and the fact that it's a kind of social practice, and I totally agree. I think the power of opinion leaders in China, especially in China, and this is specifically true in this case. It's this is like I remember I've seen in many broadcasts and books what was the situation in Europe and even in the US 50 years ago, when you had very famous actors, actresses, musicians going to the resorts, and this promoted a lot the sport, and this is exactly what's happening in China. The big difference is in China, the youngs are really connected. So there is a very strong will from the authorities for people to go for sports. And in winter, this is winter sports, and this is skiing, and it's happening. So I was in Taiwu resort last winter. It was in the middle of the week, and you had these resorts totally full of children every day coming in to learn skiing, to do some small local races with instructors. You had podiums, award ceremonies, and instantly after these, all of this content was on the social media. So it's going very quickly. It's advertised very quickly. They are learning very, very quickly. And I totally agree with Hermann and Sarah. No doubt, this sport is going to be very, very big, and probably much sooner than some are thinking.
You got some follow-up on that, Sarah?
Yes, I have actually. I think to really add the context there is that China has invested very heavily itself from the global perspective in the industry, and as Bruno already alluded to, and Anta Sportswear, which is already one of the leading manufacturers and sportswear brands in the world. They quite recently bought AMA Sports, who are the biggest winter sports group in the world, owning several of the well-known brands, including Salomon and Atomic, and also several of the clothing brands, Desanti from Japan, Peak Performance, and a very, very large number of them. And so they are the sole owners. They have invested in that, and they're really developing it in a very important way. So clearly, such a successful sportswear company see the future. They are investing in it, and they're making it happen. And I think that that's also indicative of just how important the fact is that the consumer, the industry, as Hermann alluded to, and the government are very much joined up in making winter sports a key part of their lifestyle, and focusing also on the health aspect. Over the years, one of the concerns that the government has had has been the much more passive lifestyle that people have had with the same problems that everyone experiences all over the world. And in the wintertime, there are many parts of the country where it is cold, there is snow permanently there. And the fact is now that winter sports are being uncovered as a great, healthy, recreational activity to participate in, and fun too, is really a bonus. And the government have built in winter sports, skiing, skating, snowboarding, and all sorts of leisure activities into the school programs. So it's absolutely a big, big focus, especially now with the lead up to the Beijing Games. 2 weeks ago, the president of the country, just before the World Economic Forum, went to the Olympic venues at Zhangjiakou, that's up in the mountains, where there'll be the Nordic skiing disciplines taking place, and snowboard and freestyle. So a lot of the snow sports, alpine skiing, is in Yangqing, closer to Beijing. And this visit attracted enormous exposure, great attention. And in fact, the coat that the president of state was wearing was immediately sold out. You can't buy it for love nor money. That Anta had completely run out of this one for a long time.
Can I just add from a personal perspective? So I the last time I was in China, I visited a city called Changzhou, and for people who've not heard of Changzhou before. It's kind of halfway between Shanghai and Hong Kong, and this is becoming the self-styled sportswear brand capital of China. And in one city alone, and it's a relatively small city, it's about 8 or 9 million people, it's not large, there are 300 sportswear brands in town. And Peak, you mentioned Peak, so Peak, for example, have their headquarters in Changzhou. So it is, supersize me when it comes to China, whether it's winter sport or other sports. It really is a case of supersize me. Hermann, you were going to interject there with something. You were going to add something.
No, I just wanted to add to Sarah's comment about the coat the president was wearing. It was an Arc'teryx, so one of the brand Anta took over last year, and it was not only sold out, but the Anta stock jumped by 10% that day. So it's you can really tell winter sports now moving really also the market. So it's no longer a small niche industry, but it's really also becoming important on a national level. And we are working a lot with Anta. I think one big difference is they going very directly to consumer now. So we have a lot of wholesale distribution in the rest of the world, but like Anta Group is pushing really to directly connect with consumers. They have retail stores for a lot of brands now, and I think this is a very big change for the whole winter sports industry.
Sorry, Hermann, I think you've really grab the attention and engage the audience, because we have got some questions, and Daniele in particular. I'm guessing, Daniele, you're in Italy somewhere, possibly. I think Daniele's question firstly to Bruno. You've probably already answered it, Bruno, but Daniele is also asking to Mr. Winkler, I want to ask if the level of skiers in China can grow in the future. So what do you think about the competitiveness and the overall skill level of Chinese skiers, Hermann? Where do you see it going from here?
I mean, this is a question we get asked many times, and I do not see any reason why Chinese athletes would be less talented or less qualified also to compete on a very high level. But it will take time. I think in winter sports, we see that Chinese athletes having or performing quite well already in a lot of disciplines which have a connection to gymnastics. So like the air and style or freestyle. And so in these areas, and obviously on the ice, they're already top level. When it comes to some very specific disciplines on snow, I think it will take longer time. I mean, the Chinese national team, if I'm not mistaken, joined the Winter Olympics for the first time only in 1980, so relatively late. And a lot of those disciplines, bobsliding or luge, or they are new, and it will take time. But also here, I think the law of the big number will allow a lot of talent come to these sports. And I also see the Chinese team competing on a very high level, not at the Olympics, I think, and for some of the snow disciplines. I think it will be too short that they can climb the podium there. But midterm, I think there's no doubt that there will be a lot of talent.
Thanks, Hermann. I'm just looking at Daniele's question, which he directs to Sarah, but I think it's a question for all three of you, is a Southern Hemisphere Olympics, Australia, New Zealand, South America. Do you see it happening? And if so, when? Bruno?
Well, it's difficult to say. My personal feeling is that it's probably not market-wise a priority. I like very much New Zealand and South America, etc. But basically, business-wise, it's probably 7% of the worldwide winter equipment business. So it's 7%. It's not 50%. So I would not bet a lot on this for the near future. But who knows? Maybe Sarah, you have a different opinion.
Well, to Olympic level, it's very, very unlikely, even with the way that the Olympics are evolving in terms of using existing facilities and so on. But I do have to say that the mountains in New Zealand, in South America, are absolutely spectacular, just outstanding, wonderful skiing. And there's also some great facilities in Australia too. It really is impressive. And there are World Cup competitions taking place in many different winter sports in those countries. And since now more than a decade, in New Zealand, they've organised the Winter Games New Zealand, which has become very much a key event on the global calendar. It's let's say kind of the concept of the Olympics moving forward, insofar as it's a multi-sports event, and they organise winter sports in all of the different disciplines and events where they have the facilities. So they don't have a ski jump, so they don't do ski jumping, but they do have, for example, ski orienteering. They do have ice hockey stadiums, skating, curling. So it's a mix of some Olympic disciplines and some non-Olympic disciplines, but it's a huge event and very, very successful across all the different sports. And in South America, it's very much a chosen training location for a lot of the nations, because they have these fantastic mountains and great snow conditions in Chile and in Argentina.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm just looking down the other questions, just to say to Andy and to Jane. I'll come to your questions in a moment, but I'm going to go with Brett's question because I think it links to the discussion that we've just had about the Southern Hemisphere, and in essence, Brett is asking about two things. Number one is about fan engagement, but secondly about engaging non-mainstream audiences. And I guess, kind of Hermann, 10 years ago, China was a non-mainstream audience, we could say. So can I get the thoughts of the three of you about how do you build fan engagement in winter sports, and how do you see these non-mainstream audiences, so in new countries or amongst younger people who perhaps are not engaged with winter sport in the same way? Hermann, have you got views on this?
Yeah, I think the games in Beijing, they really challenge us in many aspects, but they also allow us to rethink winter sports like we know it. And especially in three dimensions, I think from a consumer side, and our company Snow51 might be a very good example. You cannot expect Chinese consumers to travel to the ski resorts or all of them at the same time and in a very short period of time, but you need to provide solutions which fit the market and fit the development stage of the market. And a lot of wealthy consumers in China, they are living in the big cities, in the urban areas. So if you want to engage them into skiing, you need to bring the solution right to them in a way which is practical and efficient. The other area I think we will need to rethink is technology. I think China is very much on the forefront of all kind of new technical solutions, and also in terms of communication. So just think social media. We yearly organize together with one of the big social media platforms a kind of alpine ski promotion campaign, engaging more than 100 million people. And but those people, they are not very familiar with skiing. They like the images, they like to know more. And this is a unique opportunity to start early to pull the people in. I think the World Cup highly competitive races, they will take a little bit longer time because the base we're starting is relatively low. So what we need to deliver is a lot of fun and motivation to the people in general about skiing or all kind of winter sports. and then in a later stage they will also be much more excited about the professional competitions. And I think China will host kind of the first internet games in history, and I think there will be a lot of stronger connections between the fans and the teams. So talking about content on demand or specialized content and so on, I think with those big tech companies in China, they will explore new ways, which then will also be very helpful for the rest of the world to engage more audience in winter sports.
Can I come to you in a second, Sarah, and go first to Bruno? And I'm thinking particularly about Brett's question around non-mainstream audiences. Are you seeing, apart from China, where presumably you're seeing increasing sales, are there other hotspots in the world right now, other than the more traditional, obviously, Northern Europe, and we now know China, but elsewhere as well, or not?
I think you know, if you look at different practices for skiing, you have alpine, you have touring skiing, cross country. So you have many ways. Free skiing, which has been a trend for several years now. But I would say it's very interesting because it's a sport. You cannot just rely on making a good picture with a famous guy for supporting the development of the sport on the long term. I mean, that can work probably on the short term. It's a kind of igniter, of a catalyst, I would say. But you have to really to get serious about the sport as soon as possible. To make skis and to make efficient skis, you need to win races. I mean, that's part of the model. At least that's part of Rossignol model. And to win races, it's decades of know-how, of building a know-how about the products, about the relationship with the racers, the way you ski, the way you use the product. So it's really quite challenging and difficult activity. And this is very enthusiastic, but there is a lot of work behind that. And I think if we succeed in countries like France or Switzerland or Austria, Scandinavia, Japan, with all these countries very passionate about ski racing, like Canada as well, this is because these fundamentals are there. And I am totally convinced that in China, we are beginning very social, very gently with the communities to learn about skiing. But I think the Olympics are going to be a huge opportunity to get to the core of the sport and to motivate the youngers to go for it, because this is passionating, this is enthusiastic. The landscape is and especially the environment of races is something which is you have to live. Just attending a kids' bull race in winter with a beautiful sunshine is absolutely fantastic. And I think our challenge is going to be this one, to communicate this passion to the Chinese people. And as soon as we get that, I think it's going to be huge.
Sarah?
Yeah, I think this is exactly the direction that's important in China. Success from the athletes has a massive impact on the public. It really does. When they have successful athletes, we see it in all sports, that will create a huge interest. And that's why the government is also investing so much and doing such a very intensive job on having success with their athletes now at the games and moving forwards. They really become big stars. Now, the Chinese are already very successful in a number of different winter sport disciplines, in figure skating, in speed skating, short track speed skating. They've also started to do very well in the sliding sports, bobsleigh and luge, and they are really at the top level when it comes to the acrobatic sports in freestyle, free ski, aerial, snowboard, and these events. But in the more traditional sports, with cross-country skiing, alpine skiing, ski jumping, also with ice hockey, they haven't been at that level, and they've really been participants, but not getting to the elite, and that will definitely change moving forwards. And they've taken on board top experts. So one of the important elements for being successful is to have these guys on the front page of the news, and we've seen it with the successes that they've had until now, and then that will be an important catalyst. And the other big factor in China is actually the significance of Olympic Games. The Olympic Games is absolutely an iconic thing that everybody follows. And so this perfect combination of successful athletes and the Olympics will be a huge catalyst for the development also then of the recreational side, of becoming even more mainstream.
Can I just bring it back to, I'm aware that Jane has asked a question, and as the list of questions grows, Jane, you're disappearing into the sunset. So I want to go back to Jane so I don't lose that question. Jane's asking, could you explain, perhaps Hermann, more clearly the connection between the Chinese government's support for winter sport and the links to health and also to education? What benefits to China are there by promoting winter sport in this way?
One very good thing about doing business in China, despite the fierce competition and the extremely dynamic, is it's relatively well plannable, in the sense that the government puts out the 5 years plans for a lot of different industries. And there is a 5 years sport plan, there is a 5 years winter sport plan, there is a winter sport for schools plan. So there's a very clear guideline how to follow through from the side of the government. On one side, they also trying to create the right environment. And if we just take the high-speed train, which was recently opened, connecting Beijing with some of those Olympic host venues, these are really big levers to make the sport more accessible. I mean, before, when we were driving there from Beijing, it took you 5 or 6 hours to get to the ski resort. Now you take the high-speed train, and in 45 minutes you are from Beijing train station, you directly arrive in the ski resort. So all in a sudden, a sport which before was maybe slightly too complicated for a lot of beginners, it's accessible because the government puts a lot of infrastructure in place. For 2025, the government plans to introduce winter sports in the school curriculum of at least 5,000 schools. And this, they will make it happen. So maybe they don't know yet how exactly it can work, but they are doing it, and they are bringing the young talents and the youth towards winter sports. So I think there is very clear master plan behind, and as this gives you a lot of security in planning, a lot of businesses, private businesses, also jump on the train. So you know it's gonna happen. So it's not that you get a lot of direct subsidies from the government, but you know they will make it happen. So you need to be there in order to be part of the game.
There is a question from Andy, which I'm going to come back to, Andy, but what I find interesting about Hermann's responses is that back in 2017, I was in Beijing and went to see the construction of the railway from central Beijing up to the mountains, and it occurred to me that all of these farmers suddenly having lived in rural areas, suddenly had a high-speed rail link built through their land. And we have a question or an observation from anonymous attendee. So I'm guessing that's not your real name, anonymous attendee. But I do think you touch on a really interesting issue, which is about winter sports and the environment. And I guess there are two dimensions to this: the way in which winter sports are affected by the environment and the way that winter sports affect the environment. And I just wonder, to our panel members, do you have a particular view on the environment and winter sports relationship with the environment?
Absolutely. If I can jump in, it's fundamental. Winter sports takes place in predominantly in the sort of locations like behind me. It's beautiful. It's the nature. It has to be respected. It has to, and we have to really take care of it for the future. There's no question. And this has now become uppermost on the agenda of everybody in the whole ecosystem, that it's important. China is absolutely at the forefront here when it comes to addressing the question. It's been something that's been heavily discussed and criticized in the past. And perhaps one example of what they've done actually in connection both with the Olympic Winter Games, but also moving forwards from the whole urban and environmental developments, is that a part of Beijing city called Shougang on the west of the city was closed down shortly before the 2008 Games. This is where all of the main factories were, and it remained closed for a while, and they saw this opportunity with the Winter Games to completely redevelop it. And they've done the most marvelous, very sustainable, significant construction there that's built into the whole Olympic facility. And there'll be competitions taking place there in snowboard and freestyle with the big air events, but they've got all their training venues there for the ice sports. And it's a complete a business park there too. So it's combining now living, business, sport, recreational, a lot of green areas there, and so it's a big focus. But in general, it's an area that's taking on new dimensions. Manufacturers, for example, of grooming machines to do the mountains, they're now producing them with electronic vehicles. It's high up the agendas, and so it should be.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I don't know if Hermann, Bruno want to add to that. Whilst they consider whether they want to add to it, I want to turn to Andy's question. Andy is asking about some of the issues and challenges of entering the Chinese market and successfully selling your products. I mean, Bruno, from your perspective, how have you found it? How has operating in China been for you?
So for years we have been working with distributors. So we have set our own organization now 3 years ago, and developing our position since then. It's really it's beginning. So I think we have to start with the beginning. We have to be a lot in the results to understand how people are learning how they are learning their ski experience, how we can accompany that. So what we do a lot of content about ski experiences, trying the sports, teaming up with instructors, spending a good day, and so it's I would say we are not there just to sell a product for next year. We intend to be there for decades, as in other countries, and to do what we have to do to succeed. In other countries, what we have been doing and what we continue to do today is to be very close to what we call our junior programs. We are in every ski resort in the world. trying to identify the champions of tomorrow. And if we have today, if we are lucky enough to have a couple of champions at the top of the World Cup, this is because we have built a pyramid of thousands of skiers everywhere in the world with kids in the resorts and dealing this way. So, you know, huge champions like Alberto Tomba, like many others, I would say, have grown with Rossignol since they were 8. And I think in China, this is our duty to do this, to participate to building this with the community, with the resorts, with the great Beijing area, because there is a very strong willingness from the local authorities to have children everywhere in the mountains and going to the sports, and this is going to be our priority for the next years.
Mm-hmm. Hermann, before you set up your current organization, you worked for Swarovski in China, so you commercially and I guess politically too, you know your way around the territory. What do people know? What do you think that people need to know about doing business in China? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the pitfalls?
I think there is the obvious free. China is very big and it's not one country. We sometimes talk about China as being one unit, but doing business in Beijing is very different from doing it in Shanghai or in the south. So you need also your special partners in all those areas. Your perfect partner for Beijing might be the worst one for Shanghai and so on. So one is the size of the country. The other one, and it comes with size, is really competition. I think we fully underestimate how quick and competitive China is. So even you might have a very good product and a competitive product, you need to be successful in the market, and so you need to be very quick. A lot of times headquarters have hard time to understand how quickly decisions need to be made in the local market, but otherwise you are just simply left out. And the third one I would say is about alliances and networks. I mean, China is too big to succeed by yourself. So you need to create very strong alliances, and especially now also in regards of winter sports, I think there is so much know-how and competence in the alpine areas. But we need also to use those synergies and networks in order to really make an impact in China. So I think what does not work is you hear all the time the potential is so big in China and you have 1.4 billion people, and if you just get 0.0 something percent, you will be successful. And that's not going to work, because either you are relevant and you are a brand and you are looked up, and then business can be very good, or you are nobody and basically you won't make your way in China. And maybe just let me add one more thing, because Swarovski was one of the first luxury brands entering China. So Swarovski is a household name, and I think we did a fairly good job in building the brand. So Swarovski is relatively well known and highly positioned in China. And exactly the same is happening for winter sports now. So the market is heating up, the Olympics are coming. So I see a lot of Western brands waiting and looking and saying, okay, let's see first what happens. And then this window of opportunity might be closed. So I think Rossignol took a different way. They went there relatively early, and they perfectly understand that you need to be there in the long term, and cannot be kind of a quick win.
Thank you, Hermann. I'm going to ask everyone to really sum up in the form of one thing to look out for around Beijing 2022, but I'm going to come to that in a moment. we do need to finish because we're almost at the top of the hour. But I want to ask you a question, Sarah, which comes from Journal. And they're asking, how much of a setback is the cancellation of Olympic test events, or is this irrelevant?
In terms of the delivery of the games next year, it's I won't say completely irrelevant, but it certainly won't affect them being at the very, very highest level, no question. In fact, as we speak, they're undertaking the replacement events, which are training events. So they're being carried out in exactly the same way, but just without any international participants. But they've got all the experts on site, the facilities are all being tested and used, and everybody's given them the big thumbs up. So that's fantastic. And in terms of the expertise and carrying out competitions, that is in any case present and there. So yeah, it would have been great to showcase the venues and see what's happening, but operationally it would be perfect. And last week, in fact, the IOC president spoke out very, very clearly to say that what's been achieved is a miracle, and these games will, no question, be an absolute catalyst for the real development of winter sports and successful winter competitions in China.
So I'm going to ask if our speakers can just be patient with us for a minute or two longer, because there's a final question that I'm going to take coming from an EMLYON student, Lin, who is from China and is passionate about the games and possibly may even want to work in winter sport in China. Any hints, tips, advice to young Chinese people, or for that matter to any other people looking to work in the Chinese winter sports sector?
Well, I think it's in this environment, it's very easy to have passionate people. So it's a criteria, but it's not going to be the only one. No, I mean we need, you know, it's a perfect time to get into it. I think it's coming. I think a lot of things are happening at this moment. At the same time, this business construction is a long shot, so it goes quick in many areas. But we are still at this moment at, let us say, Hermann was saying 20 million ski visits last year, as compared to 55 or 60 in France, Austria, and the US. So, and today it's still more ski visits than ski days. So, and we need to convert that. We need really to work very hard, doing a lot of events, content in the resorts. So I would say, my advice would be to look at this as a priority, to convert this huge interest in real expertise and people who can practice the sport very, very seriously. So then the future is going to be very bright.
Thank you, Bruno. Hermann?
Yeah, I would say make yourself a professional in one area. So not a professional athlete, but somebody who knows how the business works. And I think there's no better time and place than doing it now in China, because a lot of those businesses are starting right now. And so you can become an expert relatively quickly compared to other areas where you might spend much longer time. And if you're based in Shanghai, watch for your next Snow 51 and just go there and have a look, and you might find already a good opportunity.
Sarah?
Definitely on the sports side as well, there's going to be new pathways opened up, that's for sure. I think one of the points, and I can sort of talk about that as part of the concluding remarks, is the fact that until now it has been a kind of a status symbol to participate in winter sports, and one of the drawbacks to it becoming sustainable has been the fact that people weren't necessarily enjoying themselves. They did it because it was a good badge of honor that they said, yeah, I've been skiing. But in terms of a longevity, unfortunately, the majority jumped out after one experience because they didn't enjoy it, they didn't feel safe, they didn't feel really that they understood how to do the sport. And this will be the big difference, that now the expertise is in place so that they understand that actually it's a fun activity, it's safe, it's enjoyable, you can do it as a family, you can do it with friends or on your own, however, but this really doesn't need to be a status symbol anymore, just to say, yeah, I'm a skier, I've been skiing once, but something that they can integrate into what they do on a regular basis and get a lot out of it. And so if your student is excited about getting involved in the industry, that's definitely a key area that they could focus on to ensure that really this good experience about participating is something that's not just a one visit, but will be sustainable.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to start to draw to a close because I get the sense that if I let this run, we could just sit here for the rest of the day talking about winter sports. So I do realize that your time is precious and that people have got other things to do. So could I draw it all in by, as I said, maybe starting with you, Bruno, then Hermann, and finally Sarah, looking ahead to Beijing next year in one sentence, what's on your radar? What are you looking out for, Bruno?
Well, it's let's try to forget this annus horribilis in this year with this pandemic, and which has affected the practice of the sports everywhere in the world. And I think Beijing next year, if we can solve this sanitary issue in the coming months, is going to be the perfect event to start with a new era, with an incredible traction that we envision for China and for Asia. So we are looking forward to it. And I can tell you, everyone is going to take this opportunity to have an incredible brand new restart with winter sport next year.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. Hermann?
When I went hiking 10 or 15 years ago in China over the weekend, my colleagues in the office would ask me, why you do that? Who forced you to do that? Stay in the shopping mall, there is AC and it's much better there. Now, if I go back, they tell me, why you don't run the marathon? Did you go boxing? You have your personal trainer yet? And this is just a very once in a lifetime time now when China is discovering fitness. So you might compare it to Jane Fonda or Schwarzenegger end of 70s in the US. So it's really, really big. And the Olympic will be the most exciting marketing campaign for winter sports in China. I think it's all set, but the most important thing was mentioned by Sarah before. We need to ensure that these first-time experiences are fun experiences. So they don't need to be perfect skiers, but they need to have fun, because then they will come back and then they will remain within the industry. And Chinese consumers are the best consumers in the world. They won't buy one pair of shoes, but they will buy 5 pairs. So, but we need to adapt to their needs.
Thank you, Hermann. And finally, Sarah.
Well, we've had some great insights, no question. And certainly this will be the Beijing 2022 Games. The build up to it now, these last 51 weeks, we celebrated 1 week ago today, the 1 year countdown. They are going to be very exciting for winter sports. And this is the game-changing moment, both within China and globally. The fact is that if you're looking at overnight, even conservatively, the number of worldwide winter sports participants is going to double. Let's say not overnight, but it's building up now over 5 years, will have a massive impact. And that's so important. And then there'll be visitors from China who are going to the rest of the world too. So an opportunity for the entire industry not to be missed by the sport as well, and will create another window just to see how things are evolving there in such a great and positive way. So yeah, exciting times ahead, no question. Shishi, and Happy New Year of the Ox to everybody, and let's hope we're all going to be strong through the pandemic, like the Ox as well, and have this behind us. We'll be celebrating at the Beijing 2022 Games together.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Herman. Thank you, Bruno, for your insights. I found them valuable. I certainly, as an English guy, I'm now more familiar with the sector. So thank you. Thank you also to everybody who asked a question. I'm really sorry that in the main I couldn't let people ask more than one question because there were so many. But I think that's a reflection of how enthusiastic the audience has been. And thank you again to Anna and to 16 at EMLYON for organising this. So can I wish you well? I send you best wishes for good snow, good health, safety, and I'm sure that all of us will be looking forward to Beijing 2022. So thank you once more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.